as I said earlier, yesterday, the 4 steps to the epiphany is from the experience of Stephen Blank that he had in building a number of companies. His final, well, the one that became successful was Epiphany. Up to then, he had some what he called craters and things that basically didn't go forwards. And he took that learning and put this into a book and a lecture series, and I've worked with him to create some of this as a lecture piece here. Okay, so something that he took a look at, and this is still very applicable. If you also looked at Samsung, if you look at Intel, if you look at any big company, they will show you probably the same process, how to develop a product. You learn this as an engineer. Okay, it's something that's called the product development diagram. So you start with a concept, and you move to product development. You say, okay, concept, let's develop something, let's put a prototype in place. We do an alpha beta test in the market, and then we start to launch and ship. Okay? This approach, although it's used in R&D labs, you know, from left straight over to the right, a process, very nice. Put hundreds of engineers behind it. It can be disastrous for startups. We have a couple of examples. An example out of the dot-com era called Webvan. Webvan was a company that had an idea of selling groceries over the internet. So the idea was, okay, we're working until 9 p.m. So I type into the internet, I need 2 kilograms of tomatoes, 3 liters of milk, whatever. And I'm going to be home at 11. And so 5 after 11, the door rings and your groceries, fresh, are delivered to you at home. You don't have the shop, you don't have to do that, you get it. Okay, there's a surplus fee, but targeting that type of an environment. Sounds cool, doesn't it? Huh? This was an idea around 2000. Okay? There are some companies now that are doing similar, but this was really, at the time, a cool idea. People jumped on it. Okay? Excellence in execution. Webvan was bankrupt 24 months later and $1.4 billion later. They burned $1.4 billion in the process. And everyone was surprised at the end that they didn't make it. Okay? So in the concept seed stage, what do? You capture the passion and the vision you have for a product. The proverbial napkin. I've had lots of those. How many of you have had those over a dinner or lunch, whatever? Written down an idea, a diagram. That's where you kind of start, okay? Product or service concept, the features, the benefits, you start putting that together. You decide who are the customers, where are they, how do I distribute this, who are my competition, how do I differentiate myself. This leads into a pricing concept, product description, R&D, first revision of the financial plan. Webvan did this all excellently. They raised $10 million first round to get going. Now what you need to know, Webvan's concept was to have a lot of vans, a lot of trucks moving the groceries, delivering the groceries, and you need storage for all of that groceries, okay? Cooling, etc. So they needed to go very broadly, very quickly. And then they raised another $393 million to implement that before they did an IPO. And their IPO was for $400 million. Okay? This is what I said yesterday. There was too much money available. I mean, these are just hundreds of millions of dollars being pushed into a concept. The investors, everyone was convinced this is going to go. It wasn't like that the entrepreneurs were naive. Well, maybe they were, but they were so naive they didn't know they were naive. Okay? Knowing that you don't know something is already knowledge, okay? But they didn't know that, and the investors didn't either. In the product development stage, everyone stops talking, starts working, company starts to specialize by function, so you start to have R&D, engineering focusing on building the product. You have key milestones, delivery dates. You put all of this plan in place. It's all great structure. You do this in big companies, you do this. Marketing redefines the size, which customers come first, etc. Creates a sales demo, sales materials, hires PR agency and a VP of sales, so you're really going down, getting that engine going. In alpha beta test, engineering works, small select group of customers, tests for bugs, so you try to get the product unbugged. Marketing develops marketing materials, communication plans, provides sales with the full support of materials. This is what we're after. Demos, videos, all of that support package. Sales signs up first customers, builds distribution channels, scales the sales staff. Okay, so because you need a lot of sales, you want to go after it, you have that model. Venture investors start measuring progress by the number of orders placed and by first customer ship. First launch, the product's working, sort of. Company goes into big bang spending, sales force is expanding, marketing is at its peak. Marketing increases demand creation programs, trying to get more customers. Okay. The board measures performance of sales against the initial business plan. And this is all works great in a large company. And we'll talk about why that is. Okay. Marketing is burning through lots of cash, trying to get more. I mean, you basically, what is the cost of another customer? That's what you do in the marketing. You try to find that, and then you try to become efficient. Webvan filed for an IPO just 60 days after its first beta testing. Raised another $400 million, had a market capitalization of $8.5 billion on the day of its IPO, greater than the top 3 grocery chains in the US combined. Shouldn't you already think about that? Greater than all of the big grocery chains. Who's been in the US? Okay, so you know Publix or something like that. You know Albertson. I mean, they're big, huge chains in every corner of the US, and so they were bigger than the top 3 together in their market capitalization. So, what's wrong with this picture and model? Sounds like it's a contradiction because every big company uses this flow. Any idea? Why is this wrong? Sounds good, right? I mean,
It's pretty cost heavy.
It's cost heavy, but you need that cost. Big companies do it and spend that money. Big companies do it because they're in an established market. New ventures, new ideas typically need to create a market. And to create a market, you need to approach it differently. The first hint lies in the name, product development model, not a marketing model, not a sales hiring model, not a customer acquisition model, or even a financing model. The largest risk for startups is not the product development. Okay? It's the development of customers and their market. For a startup, you have a new idea. You're trying to move something to customers. You think there's a niche here I'm finding. but you actually need to find your way to those customers. Okay? The vision doesn't mean that you can reach them. They fail typically due to the lack of customers and a proven financial model. Proven financial model means that you can actually sell a product and make a profit. Selling a product doesn't always mean you make a profit. You need to have all of the other costs in there as well. Where are the customers? Why is everyone setting their watches on the first customer ship? A big company, that's clear. There's an established market. They know the customers are going to buy. The market's there. I just need to find the equation. What does it cost to create a sale? What is the cost of sales for this product? And then just crank it. And a big company has already established that market. And that's why engineers typically learn this process, because they usually go to big companies afterwards, or relatively big companies, not a startup typically. Unfortunately, that's why we're doing this course, is we want more startups. But this is an area you have to be aware of. You have to take care. This is, if you know, in kind of English terminology, normally you say, ready, aim, fire. And this is fire, ready, and aim. Okay, so the other way around. Customer discovery is missing totally. I think that's probably one of the biggest messages out of Stephen Blank's 4 Steps to the Epiphany is customer discovery. And then he goes in and discusses a lot about how to do that. How do you do that as a new venture? How do you discover the customers? How do I know which market I'm in? How do I create a market? Those are all aspects that come up here. Okay? Emphasis is on execution instead of learning and discovery. Okay? And this is, a pitfall that many new ventures fall into, is that they have a great idea and they start executing. They start moving north without trying to figure out where their customer is. Their customer might be west. Okay? You need to find that orientation first. Lack of meaningful milestones, customer development, the use of a product development methodology to measure sales. Webvan had only 2,500 orders a day instead of 8,000 a day in the business plan. So that should have signaled to the VC something's not there yet. But they were still doing an IPO. They were still marching. They were executing. They were going down this plan. The use of the product development methodology to measure marketing. All of the marketing activities occurred before the customer started buying. So that's why they spent so much money. They spent so much money in getting these warehouses and these trucks, but also when all of their advertisement was spent before they found a customer. So this is a, if you want to spend $1.4 billion, this is a good method too. Burning it. They had it all spent before first product shipment. The result is a death spiral. Webvan accumulated another deficit of $612 million. That's already counted into the $1.4 billion. So, an example of how things should not go. And the day before they were bankrupt, the investors were still the opinion that this is going to fly. So there was a lot of things that went wrong here. Communication, but also that era of the dot-com gives us a lot of material to study on what can go right and what can go wrong. And one of the things is figure out who are your customers going to be and where is your market. Very significant analysis here. So this is what you have in front of you, I think you do, is a life cycle adaptation curve for technology type products. Okay? Technology products, and this is why we call this technology entrepreneurship. As I said, engineers think differently, but also the markets think differently with technology. So, how many of you have a mobile phone? I know you're almost laughing, you know, it's almost like I'm undressed if I don't have a mobile phone. Okay. How many of you have a smartphone? Okay. How many of you, and I'll start with Nokia. Okay. How many a Samsung? How many an iPhone? How many other? Okay. Android? Android-based, probably some other, but Android-based. Okay. Technology. So we had, you know, at least 5, 6 different and significant numbers in each of those categories. When you bought that because that device was giving you the best return for your needs, right? You're emotionally attached to that device. How many would trade it for a different device? 1, 2. So you're emotionally attached to a certain device, certain manufacturer, certain brand, certain features, certain lifestyle, emotionally attached. Now, technology, you would assume, is very logical, right? Not emotional. But actually, we are most attached emotionally to technology products. We, this room, the type of people in this room, we buy technology because we are emotionally attached to it. But as you saw, there's a lot of different emotions. It's not like there's one that could fulfill all of this. Okay? And that's why it's so difficult to have one product that reaches you all. Who had an iPhone? I'll just stick on there. So everyone that has a different one, I'm not, but who has an iPhone? So you had, you know, that emotional contact to that device or that lifestyle, etc. You would buy that. Now, how would you sell? How easy would it be to sell an iPhone to your mother? Easy? Yes? No? Difficult? Not easy? Oh, okay. Your grandmother? Okay. Now we've got the generation difference, you know. I'm just too old for you guys. Okay? So, why? Why is it different for your grandmother? She's in a different phase of the market. There are different phases. And so we'll move on here. We're looking at time and percentage. And the early buyers, something we call technology enthusiasts. That's me. New device. 6 months later, latest, I have it. Okay? I have a 4S. So in our family, I get the newest, and the rest kind of goes through to my wife, to my kids, you know, out the door. And okay? And then there's the visionaries. And the visionaries are people that like technology, but it already has to have a value for them. Okay? So I have a 4S, and I'm not using Siri very much except to demo it to people that are asking, what is Siri? Okay, it has a little bit more picture pixels, but I buy it because it's the newest. Other people would sit there and say, well, I would only buy it if Siri really gives me an added value. But they're not opposed to buying new technology. They actually like buying new technology, but it has to give them some feedback, some return. This is what we call the early market. We're all here in the early market. We should be able to identify ourselves here in the early market. And then there's another market here with pragmatists and conservatives, and this we call the mainstream market. This is your grandmother. This is a market where it's hard to sell into because they're looking at it and they're saying it's too complex for me. I don't need this type of a device. I need one that has 3 buttons, on, off, my son or daughter, and my other son or daughter. Okay? That's about what they need. And so, smartphone doesn't sell into that type of a market. And then we have the laggards. These are kind of, you know, operating system update 27 type adopters. So they don't move until it's almost obsolete. And then they'll say, well, this was the last update of errors. Now it's not going to get better. This is when I adopt, you know, and then three weeks later it becomes obsolete, you know, no support more. Those are the laggards. They will adopt very, very late in the market. And here is what we call a chasm. Do you know what a chasm is? Chasm is, it's like a canyon, okay? It's a crack between 2 walls that normally you can't jump across. You come up to it, you know, very deep here and very hard to get to the other side. And this is what we have between the early market and the mainstream market. If you were to sell an iPhone to your grandmother, how easy would that be? That's the challenge. How do I move over there? I want that market because, you know, it looks kind of big. That's kind of where I want to be normally, right? That's where the money is. These early adopters, it's a market. It's more a niche market. Well, the answer is it's fine to be in a niche market if that's where you want to really be. That's fine. But if you want to be in the mainstream market, you have to follow a process to get there. And the process that we go over to get there is basically we move from left to right. Okay, so we're going to get our products into the technology enthusiasts first, then into the visionaries, and then we need to use them to help us cross that chasm into the mainstream market. Customer development model. How much time do we have? 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. You were going to say 5. You had I heard that.
I didn't want to disappoint.
You didn't want to disappoint. I'll just go very quickly into this as a concept. You have this on your screen, and what you see in this model is going to stay for a larger part of the next piece of presentation. But the customer development model, as recognized by Stephen Blank, is an approach to get those customers. And basically it starts with customer discovery. It doesn't start with development of the product, etc. That kind of goes hand in hand behind the scenes, okay? And what you see here is a circle, okay? A circle. So that means it's recursive. If you don't get it right the first time, you do it again and again. So what type of a environment is this? It's a failure-tolerant model. If you don't get it right the first time, you can go back and do it again, okay? And then, assuming you found your customers, you'll move forward into customer validation. Customer validation means, will this deliver basically that stream of revenue? Can I sell to them? Is it not just a discovery of a customer, but can I validate that they will become the type of customers that I want to sell to? Again, a recursive model. And if I don't find those type of customers, then I still have the opportunity to go back and start all over again and try to discover those first customers. Okay? So this is a model that accepts failure up to here, okay? Discovering the customers. Once I've discovered them, then I need to create customers. Create customers is basically marketing, okay? I've taken a picture, and this type of model, a profile, I can now give to salespeople. I can target marketing for them, individuals. I know I'm not going to try to sell to Oma, to grandmother, to whoever. I'm going to try to sell to this profile of customer. Salespeople are usually very good at bringing in and closing deals with a certain profile of a customer. If you give them the wrong profile, they'll bring you the wrong customers. And then, after you've done that, you basically scale the company. Whew. Okay? Major difference between the model is that each step is circular, recursive, highlights the fact that each step is iterative. You get kind of in each of the circles an escape velocity to go to the next step. If I've got it right, then I go. Okay? So this is the food for thought for your lunch break.